The Trek Geeks Podcast Network is proud to have Fansets as its presenting sponsor. Fansets is the home for amazing pin collectibles, with over 400 officially licensed Star Trek pins and new releases every month.
Stay tuned for a special discount code worth 10% off your next order at fansets.com. Fansets, our pins have character.
Borg Queen is pretty devious, isn't she? And Agnes, we find out, can take care of herself in a pinch. She's pretty good with both a Romulan phaser and a human shotgun. But what exactly happened to her? Well, hop aboard as we discuss this latest installment of Star Trek Picard. I'm Mike Bovia, and this is Discovering Trek Picard. Thanks for joining us on Discovering Trek, the Star Trek Universe companion, presented by Fansets. This week is a good old-fashioned problem-solving romp that gets everyone in the crew back together again after being separated for a while. And yeah, Agnes can handle herself with a weapon. It's pretty nice to see her take care of business. What's not nice is my brain is pretty fried, so it's hard for me to come up with some introductions for everyone. So names and podcasts are going to have to suffice this week. So this week from the Sci-Fi Sisters, we have Subrina Wood. And Subrina, it's been a few weeks since we've had you on.
Yes.
You know, you guys are so busy all the time. Pre-shows for the Lappies. I mean, this is the life shows. Of being a star.
I don't know. It's well, as I said, first it was Black History Month, and then it was Women's Month, and now it's April, so nobody cares about us anymore. So we had to just take everything as it was coming. That's what.
This is the month for me because it's April Fool's. So.
Oh no.
All right. Our next co-host from Deep Space Pride is Mike Thurlow. And again, Deep Space Pride dropped another episode, and Jamie and I are sitting here, and Divine Treasury hasn't dropped an actual episode since I think right after Star Trek Las Vegas. All we've done is promote other people's stuff in the midterm.
And got business cards.
Yeah, we got business cards.
We got business cards now.
Show you've been doing this one.
Yeah.
Come on, don't sell yourself short.
So I got to ask you, Mike. I was with Jamie last night, and his wife was telling me that every time he goes away, but especially to a convention, he has a detailed list of things to pack. Do you get like that? Because I know I don't.
I don't. Well, my packing list right now for Chicago includes T-shirts, meaning our Trek Geeks network T-shirts. I failed to order the T-shirts, so we were just going with the old whatever we have. And business cards is up there, and I was scrambling to have Johnson design something so we can go to Staples and get it printed before we head out. But beyond that, no, I've actually been thinking I do want to create a checklist for myself just because I actually really get stressed out packing. It's the worst for me. And so, but I did find out, or I did check the weather, and it's not going to be warm in Chicago, guys.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm not too psyched about having to pack winter clothing for the weekend. So that is a bummer.
I'm not. I'm packing a sweatshirt and I'll just suffer because the last thing I want to do is pack a big heavy coat and then get to the con and be carrying around a big heavy coat the whole time.
Yeah, so. that's the tough part,
Now maybe
I'll bring that same thing.
Yeah, maybe I'll bring one for post-con stuff, like going to dinner and whatnot, but not for the con. I'm gonna suck it up.
I went to school in Indiana, and we got that wind off of Lake Michigan, and it gets cold down in South Bend, Indiana, but Chicago, that wind is kicking, and it's going to be cold there. But I'm looking forward to seeing you guys, and and also not Jamie, Mike. You need room. Well, you both need room in your suitcase for all the stuff that I know you're going to get. So. Or you're going to just pack an empty one. I don't know. Maybe that's the solution too.
So I do have a method that I'm going to use that I'll reveal later.
Okay. All right.
So, but I travel so often for work that I don't even think about packing anymore. My main concern is how many days, how many clothes. And then I stand there with the laundry basket and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like dealing cards.
I mean, that's probably a good way to do it. Speaking of itineraries, though, typically when we go somewhere with Johnson or, Dennis, my partner, goes with somewhere with Johnson, there is a very detailed itinerary. And since Johnson and I have been traveling to cons together, I've gotten him to be a little more relaxed about things. So there is no itinerary for this one, which is great. Usually we have our restaurants already booked and planned out. I'm like, we're just gonna, because we everything we do revolves around food. So we're like, where are we going to go for eat? What are we going to do? What are we going to do for food? So I'm like, there's going to be other people there. We're going to be, see Mike and Jamie, and the Sci-Fi sisters are going to be there, and Bill and Dan, which is going to be exciting. So, we just want to keep it loose and go with it. But, yes, I do think that a spreadsheet would sort of help, or a checklist would help in packing, because then I wouldn't be quite so stressed out. But it's par for the course.
I heard
at this
that
point.
slip a spreadsheet. Yeah.
Well, I'm starting packing tonight just so that I don't have to think about it, because believe it or not, we leave on Thursday. I'm getting up at 2:00 tomorrow morning and driving to Pennsylvania to work, and then coming back on Tuesday. So, it's Hamish. But yeah, it's going to be. I'm going to need the sleep on the plane, because I don't think I'll be sleeping much this week.
I hear you there. And yes, my other co-host Hamish has joined us just to say hi to everyone. He just came back from a fresh haircut and fresh cut, and so he's looking pretty clean, and he's got his shortcut for the spring weather.
Well, so I know I can speak for at least the Divine Treasury in saying that Hamish is one of the more intelligent people on this podcast right now. But that only takes care of 50% of it. I'm not gonna.
Definitely got the best haircut.
Oh yeah, well, that's for sure.
Well,
all right.
I mean,
one of the few ones that has hair.
So
Sabrina, you and I are the only ones with hair.
I didn't even mean that.
And the aforementioned Jamie Rogers and his lists from the Divine Treasury. And it's funny that we talk about Jamie's need for lists, because we were just talking about the curation of his Star Trek room when we were doing our patron recording. So how far into the list are you right now? Are you complete?
Well, I mean, yes, for what I'm looking for. For what I'm looking for as far as cards go, yes, it's complete right now. But we do have some sets coming out on the horizon, so we'll see. I gotta make sure I keep my.
Well, I was
TNG
talking about your packing list.
Oh, my packing list
that you were sitting on my couch last night making while we were trying to carry on conversations as adults.
Here's the thing about my list. Like, I'm very good at like making the lists, and then like I always end up like packing at the last minute anyway. So it's kind of like but I think for me it just helps me mentally to like prepare for it. If I physically make a list, whether or not I look at it and actually check the stuff off, that's a whole nother story altogether. But I actually did grab my suitcase yesterday, and I did start putting stuff in there, which is like eons ahead of where I normally am. Usually I'm last minute throwing everything together. So I'm trying to be very proactive this time and make sure that I am well prepared for this trip, and I have all the things I need to support the network and connect with all you listeners in Chicago.
See Bill and Dan, there's no reason to fire the hosts of the Divine Treasury. We're trying to be supportive.
Yes, trying.
So Jamie, why don't you be supportive and tell everyone where they can find us and the network on social media?
Well, if you'd like to follow the show on social media, you can find us at Discovering Trek, or you can join the conversation in Camp Kittimer. Answer a few simple questions, and our admins, Haley, Jackie, and Fark, will let you in.
Now, this is your friendly reminder that this episode of Discovering Trek provides spoilers for the Picard episode, Fly Me to the Moon. If you have not watched yet, head over to Paramount Plus, watch the episode, and then head back. Failure to do so leaves you open to spoilers. Episode 205 of Star Trek Picard, Fly Me to the Moon, aired March 31st, 2022. It was written by Cindy Appel, and it was directed by number one himself, Jonathan Frakes. Picard discovers that an important person from his past may be integral to the divergence in the timeline. Q continues his manipulation of the timeline, taking an interest in Dr. Adam Soong. Seven and Raffi attempt a daring rescue of Rios, while Jurati faces the consequences of her deal with the Borg Queen. So here's where we get into the nuts and bolts of the episode. So I'm going to get started with Subrina. Subrina, was this a thumbs up or a thumbs down for you, and how come?
Oh, it was a double thumbs up for me because, first of all, as you know, I'm TOS, and anything that brings back Gary frickin' Seven, come on. Yes, I laughed when I saw that. That was the best thing in this whole episode for me, the callback to Gary Seven. So yeah, double thumbs up for me.
Sweet. Yeah, that was awesome. And the thing I like most about that is it made my prediction from last week come true. So that means I'm batting like 0.010 for the season, I think. That was my that's my lone hit. So so Mike, thumbs up, thumbs down?
Definite thumbs up from me. I actually think that this is one of the better written episodes. They're all excellent. That's not a ding by any means, but this week the dialogue was just really tight and really interesting, and just kept me fixed on these characters, and especially between Q and Adam Soong, and what's the other one, T'Lyn and Picard. I just thought that the one-on-one conversations that Cindy wrote this week were excellent, and so I enjoyed this episode a lot.
Yeah. All right, Jamie, I think I know what direction you're leaning, but why don't you let us know anyway?
Well, I'm going to say thumbs up. Dare I say this is my favorite episode of the season so far. And I really think, and I know I think I've kind of expressed this in previous episodes, how I feel like each episode is getting better, and it's kind of building up to that, crescendo at the top of the, of the turn here. But I really like this episode because I feel like in the first 4 episodes, we really saw a lot of different crazy ideas being introduced, and we really weren't sure how they were going to fit in and how characters were going to fit in, or plot threads were going to fit in. We were kind of a little lost. And I feel like this episode, we're starting to see these plot threads kind of like finally come together. And we see the arc of this show really starting to take form and take shape. The whole Gary Seven connection, like Sabrina mentioned, to me was awesome. And I love the fact that, I forget her name. Is it Talarin?
Talon.
Talon, whatever it is. I love how she hates time travelers, just like Gary Seven hated time travelers. I thought that was an interesting connection. You know, how Gary Seven hated Spock and Kirk coming back, and how she hates it. And I also love that, you know, just like Gary Seven was attempting to save protect space exploration, that's something very similar to what we're seeing here with this watcher or this supervisor. And then I will say this, I love Mission Impossible. I love movies like Ocean's 11. And I feel like the next episode, we're really going to see like a Mission Impossible type dinner sequence vibe, you know, at the end there. And I loved that whole sequence. And I'm really excited to see where it goes in next week's episode. And Easter eggs are still coming. And I love the fact that the Easter eggs we're seeing in this season, I mean, they're pretty much naming Captain Kirk and the Enterprise, where we never really saw that. I think they would be more subtle with the Easter eggs, or, you know, the only time I really remember them mentioning Captain Kirk by name is in the Naked Now, you know. Other than that, they really wouldn't mention his name too often. And it's like, it's really cool that they're just coming right out saying, oh, this was when Captain Kirk went back in time to Gary Seven. You know, I just think it's really cool how they're doing it this season. But I think this is my favorite episode by far.
Yeah, I'm also going to continue the trend of thumbs up. And I've got to say, so we're on episode 5 now, and we have not had a thumbs down from a co-host yet on an episode. Now, I've been reading a lot about people's feelings on season 1, that they really liked the season, but they felt overall that it kind of peaked around episode 7 or 8 and then like tanked really bad. So I'm hoping that it's not going in that direction, because you're right, Jamie. It just seems like it's building and building and building. So hopefully we continue that trend. And you know what? I would even be satisfied if we built and stayed at a plateau instead of tanking downward. But yeah, I enjoyed this episode. She is not in my awards, but once again, the acting of Alison Pill as Jurati is front and center on this episode. And that really, I think for me helped it out. Not that it was in any way bad, because there are other performances I think that were better, but she really did another excellent job in this episode.
Please specify how you would like to proceed, sir.
So key points that stuck out to us and why we feel that way. So Mike, we'll give you the floor first.
Well, I think the first thing that I want to call out about this episode is it was great to have the return of Evan Evagora, Issa Briones, Orla Brady, and Leah Thompson. So I thought it was a really nice return to having all these people be part of the show again. Certainly, it was you had to do a double take when you saw Evan come out of the Elnor come out of the bus, and you're like, what's going on here? So that was really cool. And then to see Issa Briones return as Kara or Carrie, I don't know. Corey Soong is a really interesting thing. So the return and to see Leah Thompson do a little cameo there as Dr. Werner on the council that rejects Dr. Soong's license and his ability to do anything anymore. So I thought that all those little things really made this episode nice. Nice little touches throughout the episode. I think that, and I left off at the beginning, one of my favorite conversations too is with Seven and Raffi. So I think these dialogues between characters is really spot on in this episode. So I loved Raffi and Seven going at it. I loved Q and Adam Soong talking in the wherever they met. I'm assuming it's like a diner or something like that, a restaurant or somewhere. But some of the quotes, especially from Q, this episode really stood out to me. And I think it lends a lot of credence to, obviously we've talked in the past about some of the issues going on with Q, and we don't know what's going on, but he calls it out about time, which is interesting. So his quote is, "Seems like I've taken time for granted of late, and now she's threatening to abandon me." And I love how Adam Soong just replies, "That's the crazy talk. Then I'm out of here." And yeah, Q can obviously, has a great tongue for words, but and then to refer to himself both as, and here we go again, another mention that we've seen throughout this, that he's a gentle flutter of a butterfly. And then the exact opposite of that is as death, the destroyer of worlds. And I'm like, wow, these things that he's calling himself are just really, really powerful, I thought. The other piece, so I was really trying to get into the head of Q in this episode, and later on, towards the end of the episode, where Q and Adam are talking after Adam calls Q and says, "Okay, I'm in," and Q shows up at his place, and they're talking about this idea of being hostage to love, and my questions that came out of that are, who does Q love, and why is he doing this? So I'm really trying to figure out the motivations of Q and all of this, and that obviously the callback about time earlier in the episode is there, and he's running out of time, but he's also, I feel like he's really directly manipulating things. Like in person, it's not a snap of the fingers. He's actually actively, like in the sessions with Renee, he's and Picard calls him out on it. He's actively talking her out of going on this mission. So there is, again, we don't know the motivations of Q yet, but I don't know that and forgive me if I don't keep a database of all the little pieces of every episode. Johnson would be able to probably tell you all of these right off the top of his head, but I just don't know that Q has ever actively manipulated something in a situation that's going to change history so directly. And I could be wrong. I mean,
I have a theory about that.
Oh, okay.
The closest I can think of is Q Who, when he introduced them to the Borg early.
Right.
But literally, you're right, Mike. Literally, that is about the only thing we've ever seen when it comes to that.
Yeah. So, I just started to wonder and really pay attention to what Q is saying, and which is why I think that the writing on this episode is so sharp. He says to Adam, "We are all hostages to what we love. The only way to truly be free is to love nothing. How meaningly." So this is actually the kicker. So he should really, like the regular Q would say, the only way to truly be free is to love nothing. And he'd probably say, I love nothing. But instead he says, how meaningless would that be? And that's just, that's also a difference here in this Q, that he's actually admitting that, to some extent, if you read into that, he's admitting that there is something that he loves, and he's realizing that the meaning of life is, or part of the meaning of life is to love. And so that's also really having me wonder what his motivations are in all of this. Is it to save his partner in the Q continuum? Is it something else? Is it his own life? I don't know. So those are, that to me is the most intriguing part of all of this episode. I love the Jurati and Queen bit, and the shocking kind of ending to that. but you know, and also, as I mentioned in the pre-roll, you know, I think that there's a lot of manipulation going on with this queen. And in fact, I really want to say, like, as much as I loved I can't think of her, Alice Krieg as the Borg Queen, I think that Annie Wershing is killing it as the Borg Queen. It's just a whole nother level of manipulation and talking to Jurati like, you know, you're alone in every timeline. Ouch, you know, ouch. That's manipulation. And she says you're forever invisible. I mean, really, like harsh things that this queen is doing to manipulate Jurati. And so those are some of the things that kind of stood out for me. The only other question that I really have kind of outstanding that I'm interested in, and I don't know that we'll ever explore or see this, is who is Corey's mother? Yeah. So I'm
she
curious.
Does reference that.
Yeah.
In this episode.
He, you know, Adam pauses when she says, "What, you know, was my mom a good swimmer?" or something like that, talking about swimming. And he really pauses and takes a breath. So I'm just, I'm curious about what happened to her mother. So, yeah.
Can I give you a free nonsense prediction?
Sure. Yeah.
So Q is manipulating the timeline so that he can actually get to his true love, Catherine Janeway.
Oh.
As I said, nonsense prediction. But I couldn't help that as you were talking.
By the way, just as a side note to our listeners, if you haven't listened to Mike and M's conversation with Captain Janeway herself, it was excellent. I actually finally listened to it this weekend, and it was amazing, Mike. So,
and here's an additional side note to that. I appear on all of like 2 minutes of that conversation, which is what makes it better.
I love the questions that she was asking M, but that's a conversation. That's something I should have brought up in the pre-roll. But anyway,
that's okay. All right, Jamie, how about you? Key points for you.
Well, Mike did steal a lot of my thunder this week, so
I'm going to separate.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to separate the two of you guys going forward.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Great minds think alike, I think. So I really did pick up a lot on the whole Q thing. In fact, in my notes, I highlighted those 3 sentences that he'd said. You know, I am the evolution of stardust. I am the gentle flutter of a butterfly. I am death. You know, I really was focusing on that too. And even as a side point too, which I know Mike didn't mention this one, but I am the evolution of stardust. That was kind of interesting to me that he said that, because that was kind of a bizarre thing. You know, I actually looked up the dictionary definition of stardust, and it's a magical or charismatic quality or feeling. So I'm trying to kind of like figure out where that whole thing kind of fits into this Q scenario. But it was nice to see, like was mentioned, Evan Evagora and Issa Briones back for the season. It's nice that they weave them back in. But what's interesting to me is how those 2 characters are really being used to drive some of the major characters of this season, right? We see, Elnor is really driving that Raffi's character. And, I think I kind of mentioned it in previous episodes that we may see him in flashbacks. And I'm kind of getting the feeling that this is what we're going to see, that throughout the season, Raffi's going to be struggling with, this loss of Elnor, right, and seeing flashes of him at key moments, maybe where, she really needs to make a decision. She's seeing Elnor there. It's really driving her character. But now we see this character of Corey, and we really see how that character is driving Dr. Soong, right? And we see that we're kind of getting a setup here that this character is really going to like make him do some things that might be dark. It might really, take this character to a dark, dark place because of his love for her, whatever she is, or whatever issue she has, his love's really driving it. And then it's kind of almost the same thing. Like I feel about the Queen and Agnes Jurati, that the Queen is really driving the Jurati character throughout the season. So those things were really interesting to me. I really love the cameo that we saw with Leah Thompson. I also like the little cameo that we saw that Dr. Vasily Rozhenko, I'm not sure if anybody else caught that.
Thank you.
That was, a nod to Worf's parents and his brother from TNG. So I thought that was kind of really cool.
What about Alexander? He had the Rozhenko name.
Yeah, and Alexander,
Vasily. This guy was named Vasily Rozhenko.
Vasily. And I like the fact that we now, it's a connection to season 1. We know where Daj and Soji came from, where that image came from. Because obviously there's a reason why that character's image, Corey, is in Data's head when he does the painting, and why that's the template. Now we're seeing that connection between the first season. A lot of things that I really enjoyed about the Borg Queen as well. I like the fact that she was like picking up some of the cell phone frequencies at the beginning of the episode, and I thought it was a really nice callback to the TNG episode Brothers. I don't know if anybody else caught that. How Data was using the different voices to lock out the main computer in Brothers.
Yes.
And basically the Borg Queen kind of does the same exact thing. She is using the different voices to kind of tap into the cell phone frequencies. So that was something I thought that was really cool, and a nice another little call back to TNG.
Yeah, for me, I felt like I was wondering where she picked up on Rios's voice, because she wasn't quite active when he was around very much. I mean, Agnes and her obviously were in that therapy session, and Picard was there, so those voices made sense to me. But the whole idea that she could copy Rios's voice was...
She got it from Agnes's mind.
Oh, good one.
Pillow Talk. She got it from Pillow Talk, baby.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm glad that we have you on here, Subrina, because I never picked up on that.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, that's where I thought she got it from. She got it from Agnes's head.
Good call. That is excellent. Mystery solved. Back to you, Jamie.
You're welcome.
Jamie, 1734673214776 Charlie. Brothers.
Yeah, I know you had to look that up. You didn't memorize that.
Oh God, yeah. Come on.
but I think it was a cool callback.
The only part of that I have memorized is the very last part. Lock.
Yeah.
the low-hanging fruit for me.
No, but I remember that episode so vividly when I was watching that scene, like, oh my goodness, this is Data locking out the main computer.
I like that point too that you brought up about seeing the connection now between the visual of Daj and Soji in the painting, and I hadn't even picked up on that. But when I was watching it with Em, she said, "Oh, hey, that's why Data painted the painting that looks like Daj and Soji." I'm like, from the mouths of babes, All right, Subrina, key points.
Well, what's left for Subrina? Okay.
I know, really.
I have bizarre things. I have bizarre things that I noticed. Well, first of all, I was intrigued with Renee Picard, and I wasn't sure if Picard had mentioned her back in the first episode when he was talking to the class, and he was talking about his ancestors, and I said, I got to go back and see if he mentioned her. If she's so key that, the world is going to stop and turn and everything's going to change, that he didn't mention her. But I think it's interesting that we're going to bring up a person who is of this caliber, but also suffering from, melancholy and depression. Personally, I think she probably would have washed out of this way before she got the mission. But I think it's interesting that they are putting this in that story. And I love that part of it. I want to see how that plays out, and the fact that they've got to hold her up because she's still gonna do this mission, even though she has this affliction. I don't know what you would call it. I also thought the thing that really got me, and I watched this like 2 or 3 times just to go back, was Laris 2, which is what I'm calling her apartment, because this is supposed to be 2024, correct?
Yes.
And that apartment looked like something from back in the 50s. I'm like, well, is this the apartment she got when she first got to Earth? Because there was an old TV. There was
Maybe it was Gary
phone.
Seven's apartment.
It looked like it. Yeah. I was like, what is this? This is like from the 60s. Where are they? And then even her little tablet looked like an Etch-a-Sketch. I'm like, what is going on? Like, I don't understand this at all. And somebody, please explain to me whatever tea Picard was drinking that he had poured milk in. Tell me that was not Earl Grey, because those of us that love tea, if you put milk in Earl Grey, I got something to say about that. But he was drinking his tea that looked completely.
You and me both.
Okay. Oh my God! What are you doing, Gross. Picard? That is not Earl Grey hot. And so the other thing I thought, I loved the whole. Okay, here's my thing about Q. And I have trash predictions, so here's more trash. I don't think that's the same Q. I think that's that timeline's Q.
Interesting.
I don't think that's the same Q that sent Picard back there to stop whatever's going to happen if Q's the one that's starting it. I'm like, wait a minute. Let me stop. Like, if he's the one that's trying to stop the mission, but didn't Q send Picard back there to make sure that something got changed back? So why is he the one that's doing all the shenanigans?
He really didn't send him back. All he said was something got messed up, and then he disappeared.
Right. Okay,
so he really didn't send
him back. He told them. Again, like you're saying, he threw them in front of the Borg. He threw this little morsel at them and said, you know what? Everything's screwed up and you got to go find the Watcher, whatever he said to them. And they go off on this round the world. Here we go. We got to steal the Borg Queen. Let's go around. They're doing all this crazy shit to get back to Q. That can't be the same guy. I'm just like, who is this Q? Because now I'm really scared. If you're telling me there's a different Q in every timeline, I'm really afraid of myself. Oh my God. Yeah. But I don't know what's going on. But he has the same sort of affliction. And that scared me to death when they turned the camera around. He said, I want eyes on the doctor. And there was Q. And I'm like, all right, I'm completely freaking confused. But that's my prediction. This is a different Q. It's Q versus Q. And they're both sick because, I don't know, they both got the same whatever's going on. The snap is gone. The snap is gone from his fingers. And he's not the same man at all. Okay, other head scratcher. Where did that Borg Queen tendril come from? And why didn't she use that before? Excuse me, you got a tendril all of a sudden? You can't untie yourself?
Yeah, but I got an explanation. I got an explanation for that.
Give it to me.
Go for it.
All right. And I'm going to talk about Star Wars again. Right.
Oh man.
Hold on. Hear me out. Think of the prequels, right? Okay. Did the Emperor really use all his powers right off the bat? No, he didn't, because he was seducing Anakin Skywalker to become Darth Vader. Right? Okay, how could he do that if he played all his cards? Right? Because he was trying to seduce. Back? So now the Borg Queen is trying to seduce Agnes Jurati. If she would have just came right out with all her tentacles and did everything right off the rip.
I want you to come to me willingly.
Yeah, she has seduced her. Right? And she needed to touch her in order to, assimilate her.
Yeah.
How else would she get that to happen unless she was at a point of weakness where she's almost dying? Just like Anakin turns over to the dark side.
You fire your back tendril. That's what.
Well, how many people like the prequels?
That's not the point, Mike.
And actually, I have a better respect for the prequels because it spawned Clone Wars and everything, and that makes it so much more rich. So,
but this is another example of.
I'll go with what Jamie's saying.
It's
so will I. I think that's a good. I think that's a good explanation.
I'll take it. I have one more point to make in this whole thing. And did anyone else notice that the card that Q gave Adam Soong has the same little representation in the opening credits? That whole tunnel kind of look to it.
No.
Go back to the opening credits, and then there's a scene where that brown thing is there in the opening credits. And if you go back to the card, it's that same thing.
So when you watch the opening credits, you have to watch them in Subrina vision.
Mike is going, wait.
I got it. Yep, you're right. That weird tunnel.
Right.
You're right. It is the same.
It's on the card.
It's on the card. Oh my gosh. Because I was like, I've been wondering, what is that? Why is that even there in the credits?
In the credits, right? I'm like,
Right.
what is that?
Yes. All right, I'm with you. Wow,
Okay.
that's Sabrina.
Jamie's looking at me
You've
skeptically.
blown my mind.
I gotcha. I gotcha.
Interesting.
Yes,
Interesting.
it's like, what is that? It's some cueness. It's some cueness in the opening credits.
Cueness from the cue card.
Cueness from the cue card. I dialed the phone number. Who else dialed the phone number?
I did.
It's funny. You got to dial it. It's hilarious.
For anyone that has not, it will be played at the end of this episode.
And last thing, and this I got out of the Sci-Fi Sister discussion thread. So I'm going to give it up to my people in the mothership. Thank you guys for all these. Somebody said that it's very interesting to notice that this Soong is named Adam as if he's the first Soong. And that Corey is also an alternate name for the goddess of the underworld.
Ooh.
Back in ancient times. So Corey, spelled that way, Kore. So I'm just throwing that out there because Cindy Appel, who wrote this, I mean,
oh my God.
You know what I often think sometimes, like when I hear like podcasts like us where we're like digging deep to all these like hidden meanings to things, like I wonder if like the writers just like sit there and listen and go, I never even thought of that. That's great. That's great that you picked that out of this thing that I created.
Yeah. They're saying
you're making up stuff.
Yeah, they're saying, what the hell is wrong with these people?
They need to get a life.
Yeah.
I don't know, but Leah Marcus or whoever gave me that tip, thank you so much.
So I want to go back to something that you mentioned, Subrina, about Renee Picard. The thought that with the anxiety and depression that she had, she might have at this point already washed out. I'm kind of wondering if she has in herself that Picard gene, where we think of how Jean-Luc, after having been assimilated by the Borg, then had to face them multiple times after that assimilation. You know, we know he was dealing with PTSD revolving around that assimilation. And yet every time the Borg came up, he not only rose to the occasion, but like excelled in that occasion. I think the only two times we really see him kind of fall on his behind, you know, the one time is with his brother right afterwards. And that was really more of a therapeutic moment for him. And then the only other time I can think of is one of the very last Next Gen scenes overall, when he kills his clone there. What was his clone's name? I can't remember. Good. I'm glad I'm not the only one. Yeah, in Nemesis.
Shinzon.
Yeah,
I was wondering because you said Next Generation episode, so I was like,
well, I was
sorry.
He said clone, and we knew where to go.
Although I do think he kind of fell on his face a little bit in Borg. He really needed our black sister Whoopi to really whoop him into shape.
Whoop him up.
Whoop him into shape. You know what I mean? Because I think he kind of he let his emotions get the best of him there.
But those are all things that happen after a traumatic event, as opposed to having something that is possibly a chemical imbalance or whatever, depression and anxiety that you would see. So she's had this, obviously, Lars too is telling us she's had this since childhood. So I find it interesting that she would still be in the program. You know, I'm watching, For All Mankind.
Yeah.
And, you have to be the ultimate specimen to go through this. So I'm sort of like, I'm not faulting it. I'm just saying it's interesting that they would give her these foibles or give her this. Yeah. And make that the thing that they have to protect her from. So that's interesting.
I know. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, Sabrina. And, I'm glad you brought that out because that's a good point. I hadn't thought of it from that perspective either. So my key points, trying to go on some of the things that might be left over, grasping at whatever scraps are left at the table here.
Well, I want to go back to the Corey mother thing. I mean, what's going on there? Because he looked at her like, oh, girl, you don't have a mother. She's doing like, are you my mother?
You need
I
to be careful.
I definitely have some thoughts on that.
Yeah,
careful-
and I'm
be
not
careful
liking
where
where
you
it's
tread.
going. I'm not liking where it's going. Where are you
Yeah.
going?
Be careful where you tread, girl.
Yeah.
Oh boy,
I have some
don't give me
thoughts.
this. She's a clone too. I'm like, oh
Yeah. So let me see. I gotta scour over my notes here. So I found it interesting that so we see Adam Soong here, and this is an aspect of the Soongs that I don't think we've really seen before. Like, Adam is at the mercy of Q to save Corey.
yeah.
We see it in the, and my brain is not functioning right now, but the future Soong from Enterprise, we see it to a certain extent with the augments.
Yes.
But then, he thinks about it and he realizes he's being stupid. Adam Soong does not seem like he's going to have that aha moment. It seems like he is going to do anything he can do to save that girl. And I'm not throwing fault at that. I'm seeing that as a quality that's coming out of him already. He go for it. What do you got?
I'm not.
Okay.
Well, no, I was just thinking that, because Adam Soong is a geneticist, and so was the Soong in Enterprise. And it's not until that Soong that we even turn to him going to robotics,
right,
or cloning. So I think I'm going to stay with Corey is real, but I have a feeling her mother may not be, I don't know. Maybe she's not human.
But you got to think, though, maybe he goes to robotics because of all these unsuccessful ventures in genetics.
Okay.
Maybe he's not, like how the history should be. If it's correct, Corey's supposed to die because his genetic experiment doesn't work.
Right.
We know that there are cybernetic organisms in the future, in the future of this timeline, because of Harvey from is it episode 2?
Yeah.
Where they're at the chateau and he meets Harvey.
That's right.
Yeah. So we know that there's a Soong type android in the future. So that would be based off of this lineage.
And he basically
those were Bruce Maddox's creations.
But it's based off of the Soong prototype.
Oh man. Okay, I'm getting a headache.
Oh, me too. It's like quantum mechanics.
But I was going to say,
I'm getting a time incursion headache.
I was going to say, though, too, Harvey held a higher position in the Picard house than the actual slaves, too. Like he was a servant, but he wasn't really necessarily a slave. He was more
almost like an
assistant. A personal assistant.
Yeah,
so,
he was the personal assistant. Yeah.
So, and obviously we see that whole dynamic of Adam Soong's statue, I forget what the phrase he said was, but humans,
a safe galaxy is a human galaxy.
So if he's a guy that's at the forefront of this new alternate timeline, right? If his values, right, it's going to bring the values of the clones or the genetically engineered people or the soon type androids to the they're going to rise a little bit higher in the food chain than some of these other alien species.
So here's another thought around Adam. So Corey, he takes Corey out after he gets the quote unquote from Subrina smart water from Q. She goes outside and we look up and we see that shield over the house, and it's the same shield that was over the Earth in the alternate future timeline.
Yeah.
So, there is some more Soong moving forward into the future stuff.
I hate to break this to you, Sabrina, though, but he wasn't a bum. I know you were talking about that, the whole smart water.
He wasn't a bum.
Soon being a bum.
I said he's a bum.
Well,
He was
He
just desperate.
looks like it a little bit, but
Oh yeah.
then you saw where he lived and what he drove, and I don't know.
Right,
He doesn't
right.
look
He's
like a
doing
bum.
all right.
Doing okay.
So another point here, I find it interesting that Q wants Soong to remove Renee. Like when we first hear him say, "What do you know about Picard?" We're thinking, does he know something about Jean-Luc Picard? But it's Renee Picard that he's trying to get Soong to remove. And he must have given him a little bit of a tidbit about Jean-Luc.
No, but they didn't technically. Yeah, he just said Picard. He didn't.
Okay.
I immediately thought that he's talking about Renee because it's contemporary times and her name would be in the news. So I think that he's aware of who Q is talking about in the sense of that it's Renee and not Jean-Luc.
I still go back to this thing though of, I think of the previous episode where, Q couldn't snap his finger and kill her, let's say, right? He was trying to snap his finger and get rid of her and couldn't. But yet, like, it seems like he still has some measure of power where, he's able to come up with the magic formula, and he's able to go wherever he wants to go. And he's able to do all these other things, but yet he can't directly affect the linchpin in this whole thing. He can't directly affect Picard. He needs to find somebody else to actually do his dirty work for him, which is, to me, is kind of an interesting little thing.
Right.
It's like, why can't he do anything to affect her? What is
totally
it about
not
her?
right? It's totally not Q's MO to have to use someone else to get his job accomplished.
Yeah,
and I'm wondering now.
Protected,
Yeah, and I'm wondering now if Subrina's idea is into play. Like, if both Qs aren't in this timeline, like at this point in time right now, and the one that's talking to Soong is the Q from 2400, and they're trying to either the younger Q hasn't figured out, like, been able to do it, or I don't know. Like, there's now Subrina, you've got my mind working about which is which Q, and could there be two in this timeline in this point of 2024 as well?
He hasn't talked to Q again since they came to this timeline. Q has not appeared to Picard.
Right,
it's true. Right, the only exposure he's had to him was through that surveillance video of the session with the psychiatrist.
I don't know. I could be complete trash, but
so Subrina, all I gotta say is that I'm glad when we went into this that I started drinking a pint, because it's really helping me digest some of what you're trying to say.
I still don't understand why he would send them back and then he be the one that is the problem. That's
right.
My whole.
I think that's a really brilliant point. Yeah.
He never sent him back though.
Right, he did.
I understand he didn't actually send them back.
Good point, Jamie.
Yeah, he never did.
He never sent him back. He just said, "Here's what your future is. Here's what it is." And then, Picard was like basically arguing with him, and saying like, "I'm not going to play this game," and Q just left. He I think he did kind of leave a breadcrumb saying like, something happened in the past, but it wasn't until they went to the Borg Queen and actually talked to the Borg Queen about time travel, where the Borg Queen said there was a divergent back in 2024 in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
so they didn't get all that.
But I'm saying it's the same as bringing the Borg to them ahead of time. I mean, Q brought this fact that something was going to happen to their attention. And so why would he do that if he wanted to? I don't know. That's why you watch the show.
He's affected too, though. Like, he's not this. Like, we can clearly see he's not the same guy.
He wasn't in either time.
Yeah,
he wasn't there, and he isn't in this time here either. He's got the same problem. So I don't know.
Can I bring up one thing that bothered me about this episode? The gendarme or the police officer, how he got in, the cop, how he got into La Serena whatever it's called in
that
this
was
timeline.
I felt the same, and they didn't really show
She
that.
opened the door.
They didn't show it. Yeah, I guess she could have opened the door. It's just, I don't know. That's
Wait,
one of
she
the things
called
that
him in French.
She
She told
did.
him where the thing was. You think she's gonna have him like pick the lock on the spaceship? She opened the door.
But she actually only asked him to come to the chateau.
Right, to the vineyard.
She didn't say to come to the vineyard out in the yard. I mean, he kind of saw the.
Well, what was she gonna say? Come to the spaceship?
Good point.
That is true, but
chateau. There's a spaceship parked in back.
If it was so easy to get on that, if it was so easy to get on that cloaked spaceship, then the garbage men in Voyage Home would have gotten on the spaceship too. That's all I'm going to say about that.
But my funniest scene was when Picard was saying, "Yes, this is my crackerjack crew, and I love them," and they're dragging out the cops. Like, Lawrence too just looks at him like, "This is your crew."
He's a dead cop. No, he's not dead.
No, he's not dead.
I'm sure there's an explanation.
That was my favorite scene.
You said garbage men, Jamie, and all I could think of, did you see that? No, I didn't, and neither did you, so shut up.
She wants me to pay $50 for that toaster oven.
That was funny. Yeah, I love it when they put the humor in like they did in the original series. That was
all Nicholas Meyer.
Perfect.
There. All Nicholas Meyer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd like to take a moment to talk about Fansets, the presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks podcast network.
Fansets is the home of amazing pin collectibles. The quality of the merchandise they put out is second to none. It's not just Star Trek that they offer, as they have a bunch of different fandoms to choose from, including Scooby-Doo, DC Comics, Batman 66, Harry Potter, and Rick and Morty.
As you know, Fansets releases new pins twice a month. And if you want to see the new releases for April 1st, looks like you're going to have to come meet us at Mission Chicago to see their new releases. Hopefully they'll be on the website if we don't buy them all, with the four of us buy them all before then. But
no
they have
guarantees.
No guarantees for sure. But they offer all sorts of great releases. We just recently saw on March 15th, the release of the Luxana Troy pin, also the Adira from season 3 of Discovery and the Earth Defense Force, and also from the USS Cerritos, Lieutenant J.G. Matt, the beluga whale from Lower Decks. So look forward to those pins and also many other of the over 400 officially licensed Star Trek pins that we see on the website, including the Deltas Done Right, the Micro Crew pins, episode pins, and so many other great designs. So please go to fansets.com, put a whole bunch of pins into your cart.
As a listener to the show, you can receive 10% off your next order from Fansets by using the code DiscoveringTrek at checkout. And remember that you receive free shipping in the US on orders of $30 or more.
Fansets. Our pins have character. And we thank Fansets for being the presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks podcast network.
All right, so now we're going to get into the overall message of this episode. Did we start with you last, Mike, or did we start with Jamie last? My brain hurts.
It's Jamie's ball this time, I believe.
Okay. So, Jamie, what did you find to be, in your opinion, the overall message of this episode?
Well, I know I keep retreading these tires, but I'm going to go back to that feeling of loss and kind of maybe taking it one step further. How far are we willing to go to protect our ideals or the people that we love? We hear that term used quite a bit, being a hostage of love. Q talks about it. I really think, and I forget who mentioned it earlier in this episode, but, just like how Picard has a loss of Laris, Raffi. I think Q is battling with some sort of loss in his life. Maybe it's another member of the Q continuum or somebody he's very close to, something to that effect. But it's kind of referenced a little bit in this episode how he is a little bit of a hostage to love to a certain extent. We also see this with Adam Soong and Corey, how he is a hostage to the love of her. His fear of loss is driving his character to do things or to perhaps make decisions that could really have dark and disastrous consequences for the future of mankind. We see T'Lyn, and she's got her concern about the loss of Renee Picard or how that's going to affect the future. Borg Queen with losing Agnes, Q with his future, and there's something behind the whole Q thing that we're still trying to figure out and explore. But so I'm going to go back to that feeling of loss and how far are people willing to go to protect the things that they love.
Nice. Those tires have been retread so many times that we're seeing them on the side of the road now. Subrina?
I am going to just do a little variation of what Jamie just said. And the thing that came out for me as a theme in this was not so much the loss, but loneliness in itself. And it was mentioned by the Borg Queen to Agnes, you're alone in every timeline. And even Picard said it to Laris too. And who watches after you? You know, he asked her, you're alone all the time? And she was like, yeah, pretty much. And so is Q. We're saying, like, who has Q lost? I mean, every time we have seen Q, we have seen a couple of fun episodes where he supposedly had a wife, he supposedly had a son, but most of the time he's even alone, not even hanging with the rest of the continuum. You know, he doesn't seem to have anybody. And we have the same thing again, you know, with Raffi and Seven, you know, acknowledging that they've got each other's back, like fighting the loneliness that both of them have come out of. So I think everybody on this crew has had a moment where they have been extremely lonely. Rios too, they were totally alone, not connecting. I thought it was really interesting to see Rios connect again with his Hispanic side, you know, his Latino side. And, you know, he was enjoying talking to the doctor. He was enjoying talking to the guy that knocked out the guard. And, you know, I thought it was really loneliness, even with Renee, the loneliness that all of them experience in what they do, what they have to go through, what they're doing, and what loneliness comes from the jobs they've chosen to do.
Cool. Thank you. Mike?
I'm going to build right off of that one, which is interesting. We're all building off of each other. I think that part of the overall message here is that the importance of connection and also of reaching out. So I think that we can all identify people in our lives who may seem like they're doing fine and could probably, and therefore we just assume that they're doing fine and we don't maybe reach out as much as we should, or we forget about them a little bit. And this is where things like Jurati's lack of connection comes from. This is where, Renee's lack of connection and support comes from. And I think that the bottom line of this of what I want to say is that I think we need to all identify people in our lives who quite possibly could be those people that look like they're doing fine. They're okay. They're thriving. Everything's fine. And then, my challenge to everyone is really to identify those people and check in with them and keep checking in with them, because I don't think that first reach out is going to, that they're going to necessarily open up. And I think that these characters are representing something about, reaching out to people that you think are fine and just helping them along, because I think we all have inner demons that we're facing that other people don't know about. And, even Raffi does not tell Seven that she just thought she saw Elnor, so there are things that we're all keeping to ourselves that, people may think we're crazy or that we're, out of our minds, but that are real manifestations of the feelings that we have inside of us. And so my message to everyone listening is to identify those people who you might think are doing fine, but check in on them and repeatedly check in on them, because I think that's really important.
It's amazing how we are going to all build off of each other here, because what I have written in my notes is just a very simple sentence. It's not okay to exploit people with anxiety/depression problems. And I say that as someone who has gone through that extensively in my immediate family, myself, my wife, and my daughter. But last year in over the summer, just before Las Vegas, I was having 2 or 3 massive panic attacks a day where it was shutting me down for the whole day. And if it was not for the support that I received, obviously at home from my family, but within my team at work, explaining to them and saying, look, you can get in touch with me if you need something, but I physically can't sit at a desk and do stuff right now. I need to step back and be able to get myself well. Now, I don't know what would have happened, and I think of what we were talking about before, Subrina, about the thought with Renee and how she probably would have washed out of the program. As I think about it more, I think about how many people in the world right now are plagued, and I say it as a plague because it's a disease, are plagued with anxiety and depression right now. And I almost wonder if the fact that they had somebody actively working with her, because the doctor that Q is supposed to be is a member of the space program.
Right. She's that
there,
good.
Yeah.
That
he's there to be helping
to keep her in there. Right.
Exactly. They've seen something in her that says we need to have her on this team, but we need to give her this doctor that's going to assist her. Right. But now we see the tables turn because Q has stepped in and, getting back to my thought, he's exploiting that problem.
Absolutely.
We've talked about Jurati and her relationship with the Borg Queen and how she is exploiting her issues. Now, I would say with Jurati, it's maybe not necessarily the anxiety side of things, because she seems to handle herself well under pressure, but definitely depression, as we've talked about, with the loneliness, the being alone. And again, as we've said in this episode, the Borg Queen is exploiting that. So, I'm going to echo what you were saying, Mike. Just because someone looks fine on the outside does not mean that on the inside they're doing okay. We can't, you can't exploit the weaknesses of somebody for your own gain. You really need to be able to help and work with people. Because if you're exploiting them, you don't know what kind of situation you're leading them into.
Starfleet Command is proud to present you the Christopher Pike Medal of Valor.
So we move on to our medal round. And since I had such a long diatribe there, I will pass it on to somebody else in the room at random. So let me spin my finger, and Mike, you get to take the lead on the medal round.
Well, I think I've been pretty transparent about this from the start. I think Cindy Apple or Appel deserves an award this week for the writing of this episode. I think that the dialogue she writes between Q and Adam, between Raffi and Seven, and between T'Lyn and Picard are just really well crafted scenes and dialogue. And I hesitate to. I'm not nominating Jonathan Frakes for an award, but I think that obviously he takes what's written on paper and produces it. But honestly, it's the words on the paper this week that are. As I was watching this episode, I was actually pausing it. I had closed captionings on, and I was writing down the exact quotes. I thought I was like, oh, I can remember this, and I was like, nope, I'm gonna write it down word for word because it's so well said. And so kudos to Cindy for a fantastic written episode. The other two are acting awards. I think that Penelope Mitchell, who plays Renee Picard, did an excellent job. I can't wait to see more of her, honestly. And fun fact about her, she is also from the Vampire Diaries, which a young Captain Kirk, Paul Wesley, who's joining Strange New Worlds season 2, is also from the Vampire Diaries. So kudos to her. I can't wait to
Star Trek world.
It really is. It really is. So I want to welcome her to, we only saw her briefly laugh in the last episode. This episode, we got to see a little bit more. I can't wait to see more from her. I'm fascinated by the character of Renee Picard, and I think that she embodies it well so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing more from her. And finally, this episode would not be what it is without Brent Spiner as Adam Soong. A fantastic job, a very different character than what he's played, which I think is great for him as an actor. But I also think it's great for us as people who've seen Brent Spiner in so many different roles in the Soong family throughout Star Trek. So you really get the sense that this is a father at the end of his rope, not sure how to save his daughter, whether, and again, I think I have some doubts now in my mind about who Corey's mother is or isn't. So I think that this creation of his, let's say, is driving this character, but he's playing it really well, and a desperate father who will do anything for Q to get this cure that will allow his daughter to live. So I think that the fatherhood aspect is really powerful in this episode as well. So he does a phenomenal job. Obviously he and Delancey have played off of one another before, but you know what? To be honest, Brent Spiner takes the cake this week. So that is my third and final. I'm going to stick to 3 this week.
Well, I threatened to take one away, but I let you go. Because if I remember correctly, Jamie pulled the same stunt last week too. So to punish him,
great minds think alike, so
to punish him, I'm going to go next because I'm sure we might have some of the same stuff. So Mike, I agree with you on Brent Spiner. I had him number 1 on my list. I think it's phenomenal how he started in this franchise as Data. He has played Data, Lore, and B4, who are essentially all the same character, just with some different characteristics. But beyond that, he's taken what he built as Data and gone backwards and had to build the legacy of that character up. And Adam is different from, and I keep forgetting what his name is from Enterprise, but the Soong from Enterprise.
Eric Soong.
Eric Soong, thank you.
And Alton Inigo was the other one.
Who's different from Noonien Soong, who's different from Alton Indigo Soong, but they all have this little shred tied together where you say, I see Data there. It's maybe small, but I see Data there. And that is a trait of a fantastic actor when he can take 7 roles that he's played within a family, make them so different that you realize they're a different person. And yet at the same time, you can tell where the genesis of that comes from as well. My next one, I gotta give it up to our favorite Momulan, Orla Brady, who's not playing a Momulan in this episode, but her scenes with Patrick Stewart in this episode, like, you feel like they're in the 24th century, even though they're not. And some of that is based off of how Patrick Stewart is playing off of her. But she does an excellent job in a different role, but still doing the acting with Picard on here. And I did have writing team written down as a third one, but Mike, since you gave the credit to the writing team, I'll go with Frakes. And I'll say, the last not so great episode that I can recall Frakes directing is Sub Rosa. So, that's what, 1994. So he's got almost 30 years of good Star Trek episodes after that are almost universally proclaimed at this point. So
he had to direct what was on the paper, though, Mike.
There you go.
I know
somebody had to direct Sub Rosa.
I know.
It was scary. It was scary.
Hey, Brandon Raga loves that episode because he wrote it. I don't know that Frakes loves that episode. All right.
He also loves the one with the with the lizards in Voyager too.
Oh, hey, I like that episode.
Yeah, I know. Threshold.
All right, Jamie, since you're unmuted, we will let you go next.
All right. This is kind of a late award. So what I mean by that is I felt like I should have given this award out sooner. So I'm going to kind of make up for it here. James McKinnon for makeup. And it was, I watching Ready Room, I really gained a deeper appreciation for, if you can do the Borg Queen's makeup in 2.5 hours, you deserve an award. So, I feel like we should have given him an award a while ago, but James McKinnon for sure.
Well deserved.
I'm going to go kind of an opposite take. I know everybody's been talking about, Brent Spiner and obviously I think his performance was incredible, but I'm going to go with John Delancey and Annie Wershing again in this episode. And the reason being is going back to, we kept talking a lot about seduction in this episode and kind of those darker tones of being able to seduce somebody to do something that you want. And, obviously Annie Wershing's been killing it with Jurati the last few weeks, but John Delancey, he was seducing Brent Spiner's character. I mean,
absolutely.
He was laying on thick and really was showing his acting chops too. So, like I said, I'm going to go with the John Delancey, Annie Wershing combination of that being effective at seduction and really hitting those dark chords that we're seeing in this season.
Hey, I'm glad that you said Delancey and Wershing and then didn't try to throw another one in there like you did.
I was going to throw Franks in there too, but I said I'll stop at 3 before I get penalized.
Yeah, we would have to bring in one of the Trek geeks next week.
Yeah, Dan would fire me on the spot.
Yeah. All right, Subrina, what do you got?
Well, I'm going to go with the first thing I said, talked about earlier. I think the production, the art direction or the set direction, I love these locations and sets that they have for this show. I think the opening scene where we were on the Shango, they nailed it with that looking like, something in the space program. That was incredible. I love that apartment of Laris 2. I love the whole look of it. If you go back and look at that apartment, I was just waiting for the cat to come out from someplace. And even, like I said, the tablet she had, her outfit, everything was just spot on. And I also love the fact that this is not using the AR wall. We're not using a lot of special effects. We are using, set design to make you feel that you're in a certain place and you really are feeling that you're there. Then there were some really incredible special effects. I appreciated the vault door of Gary Seven and the smoke. I love that. I'm like, oh my God, you're killing me. And
Thank you.
The other, yes, I loved Adam Soong's apartment and his whole setup. I mean, everything looks so great. The other thing, the second one I'd like to give an award to was definitely hair and makeup. Special hair and makeup for the Borg Queen, and for making Alison Pill look like a hottie at the end of this show, where she came out there in that red dress. I was like, okay, I see you, girl. I see all of that. I see all of that. She looked glamorous, and I love that they really made her look like her, like a beautiful movie star as she can look, instead of always like poor Agnes. And I will give it to actually Annie Wersching as the Borg Queen. She is a favorite of mine. I tweeted to her and said, girl, you are killing it as the Borg Queen. And I'm with you, Jamie. I loved both other Borg Queens, but this one is creepy, even though she's got an extra tingle that I'm not still, convinced about. But I love her performance. Absolutely incredible. And those are my three.
I was just gonna say, I love how they put Agnes in the red dress too, like to make her stand out. Like the woman in the red dress. I thought that was kind of. And did you know Orla Brady is 61 years old? That woman looks fantastic for 61 years old.
Yeah, she is
fantastic.
I loved Mike calling her Momulin.
Yeah.
We have the Momulin and we have the Dadmiral. So
yes, that's right.
I love her scenes. She was. Oh my God, I love her. So yeah, I'm excited for the rest of these episodes. I cannot wait to see what happens.
And can I say, when it comes to the Borg Queen, isn't it Jurati that's killing it? Boom.
Stick to your day job, Mike.
Don't
and
worry,
that's why you're going to get fired from the network.
Exactly.
Right there.
You got it.
Boom to you.
Actually, I can hit an actual symbol if you want.
Library computer, data being received.
All right. Now, as if this episode hasn't been crazy enough, we're going to get to the prediction section, which is where things get really crazy. So I am going to go off script tonight, and I am going to take the lead on predictions, mainly for the fact that by the time all of you guys get through your predictions, I feel like whatever I've put out there is really sad. So I'm going to start off, and then, I'm not going to feel like such a slouch at the end. So here's my thought. Episode 2, Penance. At the chateau, Picard and Q are talking. And Picard says to Q, "What have you done? Why are things like this?" And Q says, "Show them a timeline they've created." And they ask, "What have you done?" I think that the death of Corey is the divergence in time. They are so focused on Renee Picard being that divergence, and that someone is going to try and prevent her from going into space. Think of what Picard says in this episode. Only thing I remember about Renee Picard was that she discovered an organism on, did he say it was Io?
Io.
That she thought was intelligent. He doesn't say that it was intelligent. He doesn't say that it was this history-altering event that everyone talks about. However, from the future that we see, we know Adam Soong has something huge to do with it. So my thought is, Corey Soong dies, Adam Soong goes off the deep end, and realizes that Q is from another dimension, an alien, whatever you want to call it. And that is where a safe galaxy is a human galaxy comes from. Bam, mic drop.
So you kept the good one for when you actually start, right? You didn't keep it in the other weeks.
Exactly. He
That's
finally
why I'm
has
starting.
something.
I had a good one, so I had to make
You had a
sure
good one,
that
so you
no
had to
one
go
else
first.
took it. Yep, that's right. That's right.
I'm in the
Sabrina,
complete opposite direction of you. So
Sabrina, what do you have for a prediction?
Well, I love Mike's prediction because I had in my notes, I feel like I need to show you, why isn't somebody watching Corey? I have that in my notes. I'm like, she seems like the magic thing here. And the only reason why I thought of it was because what Q said about he was Stardust, he was this, and then he said, I am Death the Destroyer. And that's exactly what the Romulan woman on the old Borg ship said of Soji when she looked at her. She said, "You are the destroyer. You are death." You know, I was like, "Wait a minute! Did Q just say the same thing that Corey was? Like, wait a minute, that Soji was that, and Corey and Soji and Corey and Soji and so wait." So I don't know what's going on, but that's not my prediction. You already heard my prediction. I predicted that there are multiple Qs, and this is a different Q in the timeline than the one that didn't really send them back, but kind of sent them back.
I think that's a good one.
yeah, I loved your connection.
And of course, that the little tunnel on the card is the tunnel in the opening credits. It has something to do with Q.
I love that connection that you made though to the first season about being the destroyer. I think that's
it scared me when he said that, because I said, "Oh my God, that's exactly what the Romulan said on the Borg cube."
You're the Seb Sheneb.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mike, what do you got for a prediction? Did you come up with one?
I mean, my mind is blown by the two of you this week. So I know what it's like to be Mike Bovia for a moment here.
Oh man. My new prediction is that Mike will no longer be on this show next week.
That's okay. When Jamie gets fired, he's coming over to Deep Space Pride, so that's okay. He'll have a job. So it's all set
for you.
Hopefully, it pays as well as this one.
It does. It's the same paycheck. Well, I don't think that this is anybody's surprise. The only thing I can really think of that doesn't involve what you two have already said is that, one, I think that our Jean-Luc is going to get to talk to Renee, or he's going to somehow talk to her, and that might be the point that now you got me thinking that isn't the divergence, but maybe that is the unexpected piece of this, that he's trying to convince her to go, and maybe she chooses not to go. I'm not sure, but I think that they're going to have a conversation, and I'm wondering if it's not going to go the way that they expect it to go. That he can't actually affect the timeline, and what kind of repercussions that will have to that. But I also think that there's something else that's going to happen. I'm telling you that, like, I think it's obvious now that Jurati is probably the Borg Queen from this other ship that we see in episode 2. I'm just wondering what's going to stop her from starting to assimilate 2024. I actually thought that was going to happen in this episode. I thought that when she called the cops, that was going to be the start of her army in 2024, and that she was actually going to cause the divergence by bringing up this whole or by creating a Borg collective on Earth in 2024. So I'm wondering, she's handcuffed. How is she going to get out of this? The only thing that I can think of is that the tendrils, that the things that they shoot out of their hands that assimilate, that she's going to somehow use that to originally I thought it would be to get into the system and start manipulating things, but I think that that's a little too far out of the realm of possibility. But I think that she may do that. She may assimilate the 2 security guards who are sitting in front of her, who they're talking about. So I think that we're going to see some sort of assimilation happen. that actually will, and I think everything is going to really, I really think that as much as we are hoping for an Ocean's 11 type episode next week, I think that it will be like that for a few minutes and then it will be a shitstorm, to be honest. I think that everything is going to go off the rails, and I think that, yeah, I'll just stop there. That's enough. But I think that we are expecting this to go smoothly, and it is not. And so I think that we're going to be blown away by what is going to happen next week. I think it's going to completely change what we think about this season and how the rest of the season is going to arc for us.
I agree. All right, Jamie.
Jamie, there's no way I could have spoiled your predictions.
No.
Come on, Jamie, lay it on us.
Now you know what it's like to bring up the rear.
Okay, I got a few little ones. Maybe one big one at the end. We'll see. But I definitely think, obviously, Agnes, we know she's the one that's going to help them go back in time correctly because she's the Borg Queen. So we know that one. I do think Adam Soong is going to be the instrument that attempts to kill Renee Picard. I'm going to go the opposite of Mike and Subrina. I'm going to stay on the Renee Picard bandwagon as she's the divergence. I think Adam Soong's going to try to attempt to murder her somehow, some way, kill her. Because he mentions it several times this episode. I'm willing to kill. I was willing to kill Q. I'm willing to protect the ones he loves.
Yep.
I'm going to go on the side of this whole Renee mission, that she goes and, Picard talks about that microorganism being found on Io, and being brought back. I think that is her discovering a new alien life form. And to me, that's what causes humans to want to seek out new life and new life forms and go out into space. To me, it's going to be the direct thing that influences Zephram Cochrane to want to go, perhaps do warp travel, things like that. I know he says in First Contact that it's for chicks and money and stuff like that. But
okay, thank you.
I'm going to say that, it's going to be more important than Picard's kind of leading on, that it's going to be, she found some sort of new life form, that was kind of Area 54, kept under wraps, kept secretive, whatever. But it's definitely crucial to the future of seeking out new life and new civilizations. And the last thing I'm going to say is I really think that Corey is an android or some sort of clone. I do not think she is real at all. In fact, I'm even going to go as far as to say this is maybe a multiple copy type situation where maybe she did exist at one time and maybe she had some sort of genetic defect and he's trying to figure out what the cure is. And he's so insane at this point and being so driven to madness that he's just making clone after clone after clone of this, whatever his daughter is, trying to find a cure, because we see the Leah Thompson character and that other, that board, he's been doing this for years. So, which kind of leads me to believe that this isn't his first rodeo I think this has been an ongoing process where he's just reproducing the same clone that's dying or same type of android that's dying. And he can't figure out that the link for it to survive. And he's obsessed with it. And that's why there's no wife in the picture or mother in the picture. She doesn't exist. Because he's driven her away and whatever the case is, or maybe she doesn't exist. Maybe it's something maybe he created this life and it just keeps dying because he can't figure out that secret recipe to keep it living. So I'm going to go with that theory. That I don't know, Mike.
That's a good one. I appreciate that one. You've also predicted inadvertently, I think, that Area 51 is decommissioned and they open up Area 54. Just
there you go.
I wish that
Studio 54.
I wish that Soong held the rank of colonel because then it could be the colonel's secret recipe.
There you go.
Oh my God.
if if Jurati killing it didn't kill my career on the network, Colonel's Secret Recipe just did.
But, here's the thing, though. You guys may be onto something with your predictions, because maybe the divergence is Corey getting the cure. Maybe she's never meant to get the cure. She's meant to die. But now, because Q introduces the cure to her and she lives, that becomes the divergence.
She's our Edith Keeler.
Mic drop.
She has to die.
Has to die.
No.
Yep.
I'm not.
She's either Lau or she's Edith. I don't know which one she is.
Yeah, I'm not as stuck to her as I was to Edith Keeler, though. Like, her dying wouldn't mean as much to me.
It would mean it to Soong, though. That would send them off the. That would send them off the.
The rails.
The path. Yeah, off the rails.
To me, he's already off the rails. But
yeah,
right.
For some reason, he's. I don't know. Like I said, I don't think she's real. I really don't think
Cindy Appel is having a good laugh right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. And the other thing, I said this on Deep Space Pride, but I'll say it here too. I love how much the show is fueling predictions. And so much more than Discovery ever did for at least for Johnson and I. This show doing predictions has been so much fun, and I think it really comes down to just the history in TNG and Picard himself. I think that this just, I don't know, it's like a fertile ground of stuff that the writers are just honoring everything about every single one of us and our predictions. I'm sure that everything that we've said was on some whiteboard at some point.
Yeah. Yep.
So whether they remember it or not, this is what the writers' room is doing. They're just throwing stuff out there to see what sticks. And so I love this aspect of Picard so much.
Yeah, I feel like the Discovery, and this is not bad mouthing. Let me get that out of the way right now. I feel like the Discovery writers have kind of backed off of doing predictive writing because of the massive backlash that came from the reveal in season 1 of Ash Tyler and Vogue, and then the reveal in season 2 that Michael Burnham was the Red Angel. Spoilers, sorry. But there was a lot of people who, like, one episode in, were like, once they met Ash Tyler, they said, "Oh, Ash Tyler's Vogue." And then, we heard about the Red Angel and the connection to Spock, and people said, "Oh, Michael Burnham's the Red Angel." And they throw you that little divergence there when you see that her mom is actually a Red Angel, but the Red Angel is Michael Burnham in the long run. So I kind of feel like the writers have tried to get away from that predictive writing. This writing staff, though, Mike, to your point, is kind of hitting a home run because you don't know what direction they're going to go in. We've had, between the four of us, I feel like we've had 6 or 7 predictions just here today, and any one of them could be right. So, I mean, that's awesome because it keeps everyone wanting to come back next week to see what's really going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely. The writers are killing it this season. I mean, they are just, definitely. It's a lot of fun. I mean, and you know what? All of our predictions could be wrong, and they could be something else that we didn't even think of. That's even a deeper cut than any one of us has predicted. So,
I think the show has more predictive value because they have so many more developed characters.
Yeah,
that you could say something about. And these characters not only are developed, but they're characters that we've seen in the previous season or previous franchise.
Right.
So, that makes it a lot easier for us to make up all this crazy stuff because we've got, like you said, a lot of fertile ground.
There's a lot of
that you can just go
backstory
crazy.
involved. Yep.
Yeah, you can just say, oh, well, what about this? And he said that. But, it was hard to do that with a brand new show that didn't have the bedrock, to have all that stuff come out. So the only thing you could predict on was the 2 or 3 episodes you saw. And of course, somebody nailed it.
But you also think too, I mean, it was a new show, but it was also in a time frame before the original series. So like you're kind of stuck in that retcon box where it's like, we have to follow certain rules, and we got to keep, we got to keep things a certain way, and
it's got to be within that sandbox. Yep.
Yeah, we can't go too far. We're in 2401. It's like we can do whatever we want. We can take this whatever direction we want to take it in.
And that's another thing about Discovery now. They're in the 32nd century. They have a blank slate to play with. So
I love it. Give me more butterfly people. I love it.
Absolutely. Thank you. So something that is not a prediction is what's coming up next week. With the help of Talon, Picard and the crew infiltrated Gala on the eve of a joint space mission to protect one of the astronauts they believe to be integral to the restoration of the timeline, Renee Picard. And Corey makes a startling discovery about her father's work. Episode 6 is entitled 2 of 1, and we'll be covering it for you here on Discovering Trek Picard.
And don't forget that you can support Discovering Trek and the Trek Geeks Podcast Network by subscribing to bonus content on Patreon. Get access to unedited audio of all our podcasts and a lot of other awesome perks. If you'd like to support this and the other member podcasts of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, beam on over to patreon.com/TrekGeeks, where subscriptions start as low as $2 a month.
For more great Star Trek discussion, check out the aforementioned member podcasts on the network. In addition to Discovering Trek, there is Trek Geeks, Rewind, Politrek's 5-Year Mission, Deep Space Pride, Drawn to Trek, Infinite Trek, The Divine Treasury, Sci-Fi Sisters, Science Station 2, and With the First Link. And also, we'd like to welcome ConPod, the newest podcast addition to the network, all about Star Trek conventions. You can find all of these shows and where to listen to them on trekgeeks.com/listen or by downloading the Trek Geeks mobile app.
The Trek Geeks Podcast Network. No one talks Trek like we do.
So, how is this storyline with Jurati eventually going to unfold? And as we've all asked, what is the story with Corey Soong? Also, make sure to look for us at the Trek Geeks booth and wandering about Mission Chicago this weekend, because you know what? We might have some nifty gifties. To close this episode, I will quote Jean-Luc Picard from First Contact regarding the Borg. They invade our space and we fall back. They assimilate entire worlds and we fall back. Not again. The line must be drawn here. This far, no further. Until next time, never stop discovering.
Music for Discovering Trek is provided by 5-Year Mission. They're writing an original song for each episode of Star Trek. Hear more of their music at 5yearmission.net. Discovering Trek is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
Hello, you have reached the Q Continuum. We are unable to get to the phone right now because we are busy living in a plane of existence your feeble mortal mind cannot possibly comprehend. Furthermore, it's pointless to leave a message because we, of course, already knew that you would call, and we simply do not care. Have a nice day.